Southwest Unit, Southwest Unit, Southwest Unit. I snatched her purse off of her. I snatched her jacket. On December 18th, just 7 days before Christmas, charged with murder, Christopher Morrison Sr. appeared via video for his arraignment. December 2023, just before Christmas. It's a time of friendship and giving, a time to be with your family. But for one couple in East Liverpool, Ohio, this would be the Christmas of nightmares. 34-year-old Tiffany Morrison was last seen on December 18th by her mother-in-law who doted on her. Tiffany was a real part of the family, but her initially dreamlike marriage and her relationship with her husband himself was crumbling with devastating consequences. It's over. We're done talking. When's the last time you saw your wife? He said Tiffany hadn't been seen for days, and the house in which she, her husband, and his family had built a life together was now a crime scene. What had happened to Tiffany? How had this tight-knit family fallen apart, and why? Teenage sweethearts, multiple affairs, and a shed full of horrors. With exclusive interview and body cam footage only on the Decoder. This is the tragic story of Tiffany Morrison. East Liverpool, Ohio is a small city, mostly suburban. Once famed for its pottery industry, more recently it's been the subject of environmental controversy due to a local toxic waste incinerator. This is the kind of problem that can unite a community. Murder, on the other hand, can fracture a community apart. The Morrisons were long-standing members of this community. Christopher Morrison was 33 while Tiffany was 34. They'd been together since they were both 18. Both of their social media pages were full of happy photos of each other. They ran a business together, Essential Needs, which was a massage parlor in neighboring Kennedy, Pennsylvania. They were both licensed massage therapists, and they'd trained together. They'd envisioned their whole futures together. They had 3 children, aged 14, 13, and 10. They got married when Tiffany was pregnant with the youngest child, their son, Landon. On March 21, 2013, Tiffany's parents were separated and her mom lived in Mississippi. As a result, she was much closer to Christopher's family than to her own. 2 years earlier, in 2021, maybe feeling the financial pressures of running a small business together. She and Christopher had moved in with Christopher's parents. They helped with childcare and generally tried to ease any stresses that came with being parents and entrepreneurs at the same time. A year earlier, however, in 2022, Christopher's father died. This left Kay alone, managing an increasingly unruly household with 3 kids and 2 working parents. She and Tiffany were very close. She last saw Tiffany on the evening of Monday, December 18th. You know, kids are kids. Yeah. But the last time I seen Tiffany was Sunday night. She came up. I was standing by the Christmas tree. I grabbed her. I kissed her and hugged her and told her I loved her. And she said, "I love you too." And she went into the bedroom. Tiffany went into her room, the room she and Christopher shared to take a shower. And Kay never saw her beloved daughter-in-law again. 2 days later, early in the morning on December 20th, the Columbiana County Sheriff's Office revealed a chilling 911 call, telling them that there was a dead body in a house on Shadyside Road. That house was Kay's house, the house where Christopher and Tiffany lived with their children. In a hectic household, Tiffany's absence had gone unremarked on. It was the Christmas period. The kids were busy with school, their friends, and their hobbies, and Kay had multiple grandchildren to get gifts for, so no one had noticed that Tiffany wasn't around. But someone knew that something awful had happened in that house on the night of December 18th. That someone was Randy Slager, a lifelong friend of Christopher's. He came to the police station with his father, who'd urged him to take what he knew to the police. So, what did he know? Randy said that Christopher had picked him up and brought him to his house on the evening of December 17th. He later corrected this and said he'd got the date wrong. It was actually December 18th, the same night that Tiffany was last seen. He said that that night Christopher took him down into the basement of the house. Kay and the kids were all upstairs at the time. Christopher showed Randy a bullet hole in the shower area clean of blood. He said he'd shot Tiffany, and he showed Randy a photo of Tiffany on his phone. In it, Tiffany had been shot in the face. Christopher wanted help with disposing of her body, which he'd covered in a tarp and rolled up in a carpet. Initially, Randy refused, but Christopher had a gun. Christopher told him he'd kill everyone in the house, including his 3 juvenile children, if Randy called the police. So, Randy helped him take Tiffany's body up the stairs and out into Christopher's Jeep, then into the shed. At this point, it was around 3 a.m. The police then looked into Tiffany's cell records. They showed that the last text message she'd sent had been at 6:50 p.m. on December 18th. Since then, she'd received 13 further texts and not responded to any of them. Randy Slager's story wasn't some hoax. Whatever the circumstances, it seemed clear that something had happened to Tiffany that night. So they got a search warrant for the house. They had Randy called Christopher to pick him up to make sure he wouldn't be in the house at the time. Armed and dangerous, his threats to kill his children and his mother were at the forefront of their minds. We got somebody today, supposedly he killed his wife. She's out back. So we've been working on a search war. We just got it. We wanted to get him out of the house because he was going to kill all the kids and stuff. He said he wasn't going to go. So the police detained him in a traffic stop first at 6:10 p.m. on December 20th. How you doing, sir? Good. How you doing? Do you have license with you? What's your name? Christopher Morrison. Okay. You got your firearm on you? Yes, sir. Where's it at? It's on my belt line. It's on your belt line. Yeah. Hey, do me a favor so we're all safe. Just step out for a second. Sure. Keep your hands on your head because I don't want SH or anything. You know what I mean? Going to turn around here? Just hold tight. I'm just going to place you in cuffs, just until I grab your gun. Okay. What? We got a call complaint down here. I'm just following up on City. He asked me to come down, help out. I just pulled up to my buddy's and supposed to pick him up. You supposed to pick up your buddy? Yeah. Who you picking up? Randy Swagger. He had a handgun and a switchblade on him when they stopped him again. This matched Rye's story. They decided to take him back to the police station. All right. So, you're aware what's going on. You have some gentlemen at the station want to talk to you. Okay. All right. So you're being detained and taken back to the Liverpool Township Police Department. Okay. Okay. At that point, they'll talk to you and let you know what's going on there. They sat Christopher down and interviewed him. At first, he didn't seem to know what this was all about. Why you say that? Who might it belong to? 'Cause I'm think like, did my wife say that my Jeep was stolen? Or who's your wife? Tiffany Morrison. Tiffany Morrison. And, were you guys going through a separation or, I guess you guess? I guess. He did, however, suspect it was about Tiffany. He said they'd been having problems. They were on the brink of divorce, it seemed, and Tiffany had been seeing someone else. Last night we argued and she said she was going back up to see her boyfriend. And I said, okay. I said, but you're not taking my vehicles. And she was like, yes. She said, when I took off, I left you with the Jeep for the kids and I took the Impala. And I said, okay, but I'm not going to enable this anymore. I'm not going to make it easier on you for you to leave. Like, that's not going to happen. I said, so if you're leaving, then let him, the guy who has no car, come down an hour away from where he lives and pick you up. She's like, no, I'm taking my keys and I'm leaving. I said, no, listen. I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll take you there. She said, you're not driving me to his house. And I said, okay, well then I'll pick a spot. I'll drop you off close. You can figure it out from there. And she says, okay. So we start down a hill. We started into an argument. I kicked her out of my Jeep, and that was it. Christopher was jealous and refused to give her the car to drive to see her boyfriend. They argued and he kicked her out of the Jeep, keeping her phone, or so he said. He claimed this had been only the previous night. So December 19th, when he'd kicked her out of the car, he drove around a while with Randy and then she took off. I said I went and got Randy and we drove around and I was venting. And then I felt shitty because she has no car. She has no purse. She has no keys and that was it. We just got snow. It was cold. And I'm like, here I go giving I shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, so I drove around looking for her, and then I drove home. He had her phone, but he expected her to contact him anyway. This wasn't the first time she'd taken off. Apparently, she wanted more financial independence, which was going to be tricky since she and Christopher ran a business together, and they lived with Christopher's mom. Okay, she was just talking to me about getting this house up there. Like she's running off, getting this house on her own, or she's doing it without me and forcing me into it? I'm thinking, because I didn't really agree with the house because the reason we're staying with my mom is to save money, and financially we're like closer than ever to be able to get out of my mom's house. Like we stayed with my mom as a strategy, to bank money to get a bigger down payment for our house. This, according to Christopher, was when he started to suspect that Tiffany was seeing someone else. So she's like throwing a fit, so I'll give her some time to calm down. But she's telling me, I don't think I want this. I don't think I'm coming back to this. I'm done. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this sounds weird. Something's going on here. I'm like, what's his name? Who are you talking to? That's what it's gotta be. He seemed frightened that Tiffany would leave without even saying goodbye. The first time she'd done this, the previous week, he'd taken the kids to Kalahari, in the car with them. He asked them to express their feelings about their mom. So then, I said, son, I want you to tell her how you feel. I said, how do you feel about all this? And he was like, I'm angry. He's like, I want to see her, but I'm angry. And he's like, I feel like I've had a mom since I've been 10 years old. It wasn't only jealousy and financial insecurity driving a wedge between the couple. There was the division of responsibilities in the house as well. So they were seriously talking divorce, and she's like, where are you guys at? And they tell her, and she's like, okay. And they started talking, and I got pissed in the middle of the conversation. And I was like, Chris, tell her how you feel. I'm like, don't claim them. Tell her how you feel. And he's like, I'm like, are you, now when you meet her in person? Because she's getting this house on Monday, Tuesday, whatever. I said, she's telling these kids that she's going to get this house. She wants them there with me 5 days a week. She wants them on the weekends, and then during the summer, she's going to bring them up more often, like when they want. She wants to do 50-50 with me. She wants to be civil. She wants just like we always talked about. She wanted to make it as easy as possible. She was still going to help me pay off the chief. She's still going to help me at the business. She's still going to help me with bills, but she wants me to start banking my own money in separate part accounts because she wants to basically discover her independence. She doesn't know who she is without me. I don't know who she is without her, so she wants us to be separate and do our own thing for a while. And I'm still thinking, what's his name? They'd been together since they were 18. It was understandable that they were growing apart after so many years married. They hardly knew who they were without each other. But Christopher claimed that he was trying to make the marriage work. I said, listen, let's go to couples counseling. We'll work it out. She's like, I don't know if I want to. I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's just go to work. We'll work it out. We'll talk about it later. She's like, okay. Then, on December 16th, a man called Jake Hill messaged Christopher on Facebook. He sent Christopher explicit images of the two of them together. Tiffany and Jake, that is. He sent the messages and then unsent them. So Christopher apparently called him. Jake was the man Tiffany had been seeing outside of her marriage. They squared up over the phone and over text. Jake told Christopher, go get a job and support your family, clown. Among Christopher's responses, he said, I love this for court, though. Presumably, he meant divorce court. He also said, tell me when and where I'll come to you. This was a threat. He then called Tiffany. He was furious. Are you serious? I say he tells me all this shit. You guys are mocking me and this and that. I said, okay. I said, I'm on my way to get my kids. I said, you go back to Jake. I'm done. And I'm screaming at her the whole way up there. I'm like, I have did anything for you, Tiff. Anything. I would have went to marriage counseling. I'm like, I would have gave you the world. You know what I mean? All you had to do is talk to me. If there was a problem, all you had to do is talk to me. And I understand. And I said, and I'm going to tell you what. As I'm pissed and I'm fuming, I said, I'm going to tell you like this. You know what? I've been there, and I forgive you. I said, how fucked up is that to say in the middle of it? In the middle of it after the conversation that I got right now, I'm telling you. I forgive you because I understand why. I understand why, because I've been there. I said, and it doesn't make me want you any less. I said, it doesn't make me not want to fix things. I said, we'll go to marriage counseling. I said, we'll get our family back. If you decide after marriage you give me some time, we go to marriage counseling, You decide after that you don't want to be together, fine. I said, but let's exhaust every possible option before you do this. But according to Christopher, they managed to reconcile enough that they spent the night together. And in the morning, he started looking for new job opportunities in real estate to turn their fortunes around. But things still weren't right. On December 19th, according to Christopher, he confronted her again, convinced she was still texting Jake. He took to pleading with her not to leave immediately. What do you plan on doing tonight? You're not going back to his house. Like, I can't let you do. Like, I just can't wait to. She's like, I'm not going back to this house. She's like, I'll stay here. I was like, I'll make your room comfy here. I'm like, but there's no reason you can't come back to mom's. I'll sleep in the basement. I'll sleep on the couch. We don't have to sleep together. I said, if you want boundaries, set them, but it's better than camping up here and going to that house. I said, give us a chance. Give me some time. Let's go to couples counseling and we'll work on it. And if you still want to go, and in the meantime, she says, if I still want to move out, I said, fine, then move out. But I'll get you a house in Ohio, don't get in PA, where you can't see your kids but 2 days a week, and then leave me when my income is going to be cut in less than half, and I'm going to have 5 kids. I'm going to have 3 kids, 5 days a week, and have to be paying for them the majority of the time. And you're not even going to get to see them and be involved. I said it's selfish. It's fucking selfish, and no matter how you look at it. If you're trying to teach them the lesson of you walk away from a bad relationship, then fine, teach him that lesson. But that's not how you do it. You don't run and abandon your kids and just concentrate purely and really think about yourself before Christmas. When this didn't work, he resorted to violence. So she's chasing me around the basement. She's wailing on me and I'm wrestling and I'm reading through her shit and I'm like, I look on Messenger and I see something about something encrypted and I hit it and I start reading through it and I'm like, wow. I'm like, he's worth losing all of this for. Like, I would have did anything for you. Anything in the world, and you're going to walk away from me for this loser. I'm like, you're going to lose your family. You're going to do all this shit. She's like, Chris, I like talking to him. I'm like, all right. So I shoved her. I did. I shoved her. He was worried he'd hit her head, but he said she seemed fine, just certain that she wanted to leave him. And he agreed to drive her up to Jake's. I woke her up. I'm like, let's talk. So she wakes up. She's fine. No concussion or talking. And I go upstairs and I'm trying to cool down. I keep going upstairs, taking breaks. I'm going down and coming down and she's like, I'm dead serious about just getting out. She's like, I just don't think I can even do this. She's like, I don't think I can even stay. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so what are you going to do? You going to jump in a ballet and take off? Or are you going to leave me the Jeep again? She's like, I'll leave you the Jeep. I was like, okay. So I took her keys and I was like, I got the keys. I was like, if you want, I'll take you up there. I said, but you're not taking either car. I'm done making it easy on you. I said, you don't have a car, right? I said, tell him to come figure it out. You're his woman now. Right. I said, so tell him to come get you. Figure out how to get there. I was like, I'll take you up there and I'll drop you off. You're not taking me up there and dropping me off. I'll take you up there halfway then. I'll take you to a certain point telling to meet you there. You can figure it out. Call Uber. She's like, okay. This was when they'd had an argument in the Jeep and he forced her out into the snow. According to Christopher, this was the last time he'd seen her. But given what they'd heard from Randy, the cops wanted to know more about the state of their marriage. He said he'd talk to a divorce lawyer. Okay. He's like, well, what you should do immediately, he's like, file for divorce. He's like, which sucks because it sounds like you want to work on it. He's like, and you don't want to file. I know. He's like, but if you file for divorce, he's like, then you can file for temporary custody. He's like, which will prevent her from being able to take your kids and flee. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'll get back to you about that. Like, how much is that going to cost me? He's like, it's going to be $300. And I'm like, again, with the money, like, this is not the time. This is not the time. And if she's leaving, I don't need to spend that money. Let her pay to file. I'm not the one who wants to divorce anyway. So I'm going to have these 3 kids. Why am I spending any money that I got? Divorce was going to be expensive, and they were already struggling for their finances. Tiffany had taken a second job in a factory, and Christopher was apparently considering this real estate thing. Pressure on the couple had been mounting, and it wasn't surprising that they'd reached a breaking point. But most couples, when they reach a breaking point, just split up. And it can be messy, but it's not usually violent. Christopher was pretending he was a different kind of husband. The kind who'd be upset, not violently furious at his wife's lack of interest in their life together. He'd admitted to hitting her, but nothing else. The problem was, back at his house, the cops were executing a search that showed the exact opposite to be true. Inside his house, they found trash bags, a loose piece of shower surrounded with a bullet hole in it, a matching bullet behind the shower stall, and a suspiciously red stain on the floor. These were all the hallmarks of a murder, just missing the body. So far, everything matched what Randy had told them, not what Christopher had claimed. And in the shed, just like Randy said, they found Tiffany's body. Or rather, they found a rug, rolled up around several black trash bags inside a clear tarpaulin. The contents of those trash bags were the stuff of nightmares. Christopher had used a saw to dismember his wife. There were 6 separate trash bags containing her body parts. She'd been killed by a gunshot wound to the face, just as Randy had described it. The gun hadn't been more than 3 feet from her at the time. Christopher Morrison had killed his wife, and now he was sitting in the police station lying about it. The cops took their findings to him in a second interview that same evening. It was getting late, and he was undoubtedly tired under the mental stress from putting up such a facade. This is when suspects are most likely to slip up. So the investigators first repeated the same questions. When's the last time you saw your wife? You said he suggested that if she was with anyone, she'd be with Jake, her boyfriend. Maybe she was trying to throw suspicion on a different suspect. But it didn't matter. The reason in here we brought you in, we have had people overs. We know you put new laughs on the shed. We know what all happened. So now's the time we need to talk to you. They used a classic interview strategy, telling him that this was his chance to get his perspective out there, to tell his side of the story, but he refused. So what you're saying is you want to exercise your rights? Yes, sir. All right. He said he just wanted to talk to his kids. The same kids, according to Randy, he threatened to kill only 2 nights earlier. But the cops didn't need him to tell them what had happened. The crime scene spoke for itself. They continued to search it for more evidence over the next few days. On December 29th, after Christmas had been and gone with Christopher in jail, they came back and spoke to his mom, Kay. This is sick, and I got to still live here. You know what I mean? I get it. Let us get done what we need to do. Kay, is it all right to call you Kay? Okay. And, we'll give you a copy of the inventory when we're done. Many killer moms believe in their children's innocence. They feel compelled to. Bay, who'd been just as close to Tiffany as she was to Christopher, if not more so, had no question about her son's guilt. She was upset less with the constant interviews and warrants being served on her house, and more that her son had done this in the first place. After all, she'd taken him and his family into her house to help them save money. And he'd committed a heinous crime in her own 4 walls, tearing that family apart forever. She could burn out. She wasn't trying to destroy evidence. She was trying to move on from what her son had done as fast as possible. It's very horrible. I'm sick to my stomach. I want her to shut down as soon as possible. No one's knew when I could do that. Christopher had been calling her from jail, but she didn't want to talk to him. Nothing to say. Well, no. I don't have nothing to say to him. He did this in my house. You know what I mean? And, I just don't know where his freaking head was at. But I know it sounds cool when I was born. I don't even want to stay with her after. Kay clearly had no interest in covering up for her son. In January, she agreed to be interviewed to establish more of a timeline for the murder. She recalled seeing Tiffany for the last time in the evening on Monday, December 18th, and Christopher behaving strangely. He was acting very odd. Was acting odd. Especially on Tuesday. Let's talk about Monday. Oh, Monday, He was like after you got home from shopping. Yeah, he was acting a little odd Monday. I think it was Monday evening. He didn't want us downstairs, you know what I mean? And he told us that she was sleeping. He seemed even worse on Tuesday, the day after he'd killed Tiffany. He was very emotionally upset. You could tell he was really emotionally upset. And I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday when I returned home. He was burning garbage very often. They don't burn garbage very often. Where do you burn garbage in? Right out back. Just paper garbage. Where is that? Like on your back patio? Yeah, on my back patio. There's a big thing out there, up by the tree. Had she come across him trying to destroy the evidence of what he'd done? It seemed likely. So, you never seen Tiffany walk up out of the basement and get into the red car or the number of the Jeep? No. Kay also offered some more background on their marriage. He kept telling us I knew they were having marital problems. Before she came back home Sunday, she had been gone for at least 5 days. Okay, he told me that this guy she was seeing was 18 years old, under house arrest, and he had sent him some nasty pictures. She suggested that the interaction with Jake Hill had driven Christopher over the edge, and he wasn't blameless in the marriage either. He was crying. He was like, I would do anything to make this right with her because, see, he had an affair before, okay, with his partner from the Central Needs. The affair was with a woman called Kayla Laurie. It happened for around 2 years across 2019 and 2020, so 3 years earlier, a long time ago. And she had long since quit working with Christopher and Tiffany. But this was an old wound that had never fully closed. Maybe Tiffany's own affair was partly her own way of getting back at him, and he responded to it rashly and unhealthily. Totally inappropriately, he sent the explicit images to their teenage son, perhaps trying to drive a wedge between the kids and their mom. Kay also revealed that Christopher had a violent past. I'm not going to say I wasn't ever scared of my son because I've always been kind of scared of him. When he was 14, he and his friends tied up a dog and shot it. Kay later found the corpse on her property. Around the same time, he stabbed another kid in the arm. She ended up sending him to a treatment center to deal with his issues with anger and violence. But apparently that didn't work. And Tiffany, who'd been with him since they were 18, still couldn't have known how violently her affair would end. To really understand the relationship dynamics at play here, there was one last person to talk to, Jake Hill himself. He was working at a factory in Pennsylvania in the summer of 2023 when he met Tiffany, who'd taken a second job there to top up her family's income. They hit it off immediately, but Tiffany was hesitant. Tiffany talked about Christopher. Yeah, what would she say about that? Basically that we were better off just being friends. That dude's not right in the head. And I used to just laugh and be like, I'm not right in the head either. I'm not worried about him. And she just basically told me to just if we're going to keep talking, just block everybody and just don't ever say nothing to anybody. Did she ever express any concerns that she had about the two of you getting into a relationship? How Chris may react to that. That's why she said that we were better off just being friends because she was... I don't want to say that. I mean, she had to be scared of him to say something like that. She said he was nuts, that he wasn't right in the head. That's all she kept saying, and I just kept pushing it off I'm not right in the head either. Despite her evident fear of how Christopher would react, she became close to Jake. In November, only months before her death, she began a romantic relationship with him. For those first few weeks, Tiffany felt like she'd escaped the stresses of her fracturing marriage until just a week before her killing, when her daughter found her text messages to Jake. In these messages, they were discussing the way Christopher treated her. I don't know. I told her a lot of things, he didn't care about you. He just didn't want to see you with nobody else. He's this, he's that, he's manipulative. He just wants to see you stuck. He's just happy where he has you. And she was starting to realize that and starting to open up to that a lot. And she's like, you know what? I think you're right. And she finally had enough. She made some soup or something. He came home and flipped out and was like, this is greasy. I don't like greasy stuff. This is bullshit. I don't know why you're cooking me stuff like this. And that's when she messaged me and was like, Jake, I think I finally had enough. Just send me your address. I'm coming there. That her daughter had seen these messages created an urgency in their relationship that hadn't been there before. Tiffany had to choose. Christopher, the man she'd loved for 16 years, or Jake, who offered her something new and exciting, an escape from her controlling husband. When she left the house for 5 days the week before the murder, she stayed with Jake. She told him she wanted to leave Christopher and live with him instead. On December 16th, she was driving back to Jake's after work when she received a call from her daughter who wanted to have a movie night with her. This was enough to sway her decision. Maybe she felt like she was betraying her family. Maybe the stress of keeping the affair from Christopher was too much. She agreed to come home and sent Jake a video to break up with him. And then 45 minutes later, she sent me a video and she said, "It's over. I'm done. It's over. We're done talking." And I said, "What do you mean you're done? Are you okay? Is this dude about to hurt you? What's going on?" And then he sent me that video. I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but he said something about Jake Hill from Newcastle. "I'm getting closer, bud. I'll be there soon. We're going to talk about this Manto man," or something like that. Jake didn't respond well to Tiffany's choice. He started drinking, and that night he sent Christopher the explicit images over Facebook. The ensuing fight upset Tiffany deeply. She didn't want to be with either of them, and she started talking about leaving Christopher and getting her own apartment. But both of them, Tiffany and Jake, were scared. Christopher had threatened Jake and hit Tiffany. I told him stuff it's all bunched, I was drunk. I was very drunk. I basically told him you can't play a game with a woman like Tiffany forever and think the game isn't going to come back and play you. That somebody is not going to come along and treat Tiffany how she's supposed to be treated. And he said, "That's fine, Jake, because the game's over." And when he said that is when I dialed the police department number and I just never called. "You said you dialed the number or you looked the number up?" I had it dialed into my phone. I just never hit the green call button. Did Tiffany believe that he would come to hurt you or her? Yeah, that's from the very beginning she had concerns about that. That's why she said we're better off just being friends, he's not right in the head. Jake's last contact with Tiffany was on Sunday, December 17th. They fought again over text, and he would never hear from her again. She didn't come into work on December 19th, and when he contacted her father, he hadn't heard from her either. Little did any of them know that she was already dead. And if Christopher had his way, he would have killed Jake too. In the days around Tiffany's death, Jake bought a gun for his own protection. Christopher had made a Facebook post asking his friends for help finding Jake. Who made, and maybe we asked, but who made the first contact between you and Chris? I did. You did. And I know you don't want to get anybody else involved. But you indicated at some point what made you decide to go and get a firearm for protection when the Facebook post was made about, "Can somebody find me Jake Hill? He works at," and the post wasn't even on for 5 minutes, and the comment said, "Do you want them bagged and gagged, or do you just want them?" And that was one of the first indicators where it was maybe this guy really isn't right in the head. Jake might have been lucky that Christopher didn't find him. Tiffany, who tried her best to assert her independence in her marriage, and when that didn't work, escape it, wasn't so lucky at all. Christopher was charged with her murder, and during the legal proceedings, including a suppression hearing his defense counsel wanted to use to throw out the recordings of his arrest, he took the stand and incriminated himself. The prosecutor asked, "Were you under a lot of stress because Tiffany Morrison was chopped up in your home?" Christopher said he was stressed because of his business, his 3 kids, and the strain on his marriage. The prosecutor returned. "So, the fact that Tiffany Morrison was dead in your shed at your home, that wasn't a stressor for you?" Christopher, making a fatal error for his case, said that it was a stressor. During his interview with the police, he'd kept on saying that he didn't know where Tiffany was, but this suggested he did know, and the prosecutor zoned in on it. He said, "You knew where she was. You shot her, chopped her up, and left her in the shed." Christopher's response, yes. Following this catastrophic mistake, he had little choice but to plead guilty. So on December 17th, 2024, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance for parole for a minimum of 25 years. At the sentence hearing, the judge had cold words for him. "You call her a bad mom. How dare you? And then you stand up here today and read of someone who was in love with this person Is that how you treat people you love? I think the state nailed it. You're a narcissist. It's only about you. Today, he remains in prison in Ohio, while his and Tiffany's kids are being raised by their grandparents, deprived of both mother and father by a brutal, senseless crime. Christopher, when pleading guilty, admitted that he'd killed her to stop her from divorcing him. He couldn't stand the idea of her with Jake or her with anyone. He didn't see her as her own person. If he couldn't have her, he believed that no one could. Mr. Morrison, you're charged with murder and unclassified misdemeanor. This has different penalties than what I've stated to the group. The penalties with this charge has an indefinite prison term of 15 years to life, maximum fine of $15,000. Do you understand what you're charged with? What do you think about this horrifying story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we'll see you very soon on the Decoder.